The real Old West wasn't just violent, it was savage in ways that would make your stomach drop. We're talking about human skin turned into shoes, bodies sold to carnivals, families running murder operations out of roadside inns, cannibals who didn't just survive, they bragged. This wasn't a lawless land with occasional danger. This was a world where morality had packed up and left town, and something far darker had moved in. And I'm warning you right now, by the time we hit number 1, you'll be questioning everything you thought you knew about this era. Because the stories you're about to hear aren't legends, they're documented, real, and far more disturbing than anything Hollywood ever showed you. So if you think you know what the frontier was like, you might want to rethink that before we begin. The countdown. Number 33. The outlaw who killed while waiting to be executed. Cherokee Bill was already sentenced to hang. Date set, no appeal, and no way out. While sitting in that jail cell, a woman smuggled a gun to him inside a food bundle during a visit. Most men in his position would sit quietly, counting down their final days, making peace with what was coming. Cherokee Bill shot and killed a prison guard in cold blood. The man crumpled in that jail corridor with a bullet in him, dead before he hit the floor, killed while simply doing his job. The escape failed immediately. He was wrestled back into custody, soaked in someone else's blood, and charged with a second murder on top of the death sentence already hanging over him. When they finally walked him to the gallows at age 20, someone asked for last words. He said, "I came here to die, not to make a speech." A death sentence couldn't even slow him down. Number 32. Did Billy the Kid really die? Billy the Kid was supposedly killed in 1881, shot in a dark room, body buried quickly, case closed. Except his grave marker has been stolen 3 separate times. Pried off the ground, hauled away, gone. Men kept coming forward for decades, insisting they were him, that they had slipped away that night while another man's body took the blame. One claimant in 1950 was nearly 70 years old, still carrying details about his supposed past life that no ordinary person should have known. Whether he survived or not, the fact that people kept stealing the physical proof of his death, the stone that was supposed to be the final word, says everything about how thin the line between myth and reality actually was in the Old West. Number 31. The unsolved murder of Belle Starr. Belle Starr outmaneuvered lawmen for decades, slippery, sharp, feared. Then on February 3, 1889, 2 days before her birthday, someone pressed a shotgun against the back of her head and pulled the trigger while she was riding alone on a dirt road. She was blown off her horse and hit the ground in a heap, face down in the mud, dead before anyone heard the shot echo. No warning, no confrontation. Just a coward with a gun and a woman who never saw it coming. The killer was never found. Suspects included her own son, a teenager who may have put buckshot through his own mother's skull and then gone home to eat supper. The answer went into the ground with her. Number 30. Revenge without a badge. After his brother was shot in the back and left to die on a billiard table, Wyatt Earp didn't file reports. He hunted suspects down one by one and executed them. Shot at close range, left in the dirt, no trial, no paperwork. One man was blown apart by a shotgun at such close range that pieces scattered across the ground. Warrants were issued for Wyatt's arrest. The man history bronzed as a hero was, by every legal definition, a fugitive who killed people and ran. Number 29. The creature that disappeared. Cowboys in Arizona shot a massive winged creature out of the sky, something with a wingspan witnesses couldn't agree on because nothing they'd ever seen came close. They dragged the carcass to town on horseback, displayed it publicly, and photographed it. That photograph has never been found. No feather, fragment, or a single piece of evidence preserved. Just consistent, detailed accounts from people with no reason to coordinate a lie. Whatever they shot out of that sky, history couldn't dig it back up. Number 28. Glowing animals in the dark. During electrical storms, cattle horns began to glow. A pale, cold, blue-white light flickering from tip to tip across entire herds. Horses had it too, their ear tips lit like heatless embers. These were men who slept next to trail corpses without flinching, who watched men bleed out without looking away. And the glowing animals broke something in them. They described it in letters home like men trying to put a nightmare into words. Even in a world soaked in blood, the unknown found a way through. Number 27. Lights that shouldn't exist. Near Marfa, Texas, glowing orbs have drifted through the desert darkness for over a century, splitting apart, merging, hovering, vanishing. Early settlers rode toward them thinking they were campfires. The lights pulled back. There was never anything there. No tracks in ash, nothing pressed into the dirt. Scientists have proposed explanations. None stick cleanly. Every few nights they reappear on the horizon, silent and unhurried, as if whatever is out there has been watching confused humans try to catch it for 150 years and finds the whole thing deeply uninteresting. Number 26. The Lost Dutchman's Curse. A hidden mine in Arizona's Superstition Mountains has been pulling people into its shadow for over a century. Many went in. Many did not come out. The bodies that were found weren't simply dead from a fall, skulls caved in, possessions stripped, arranged in positions that didn't match any natural collapse. Some searchers were found without their heads. Others vanished so completely that only a boot was ever recovered, miles from where they were last seen. The mine has never been found. The body count has never stopped climbing. If this is already getting under your skin, drop a comment right now. Tell me which fact hit hardest. And hit that like button because what's coming next is significantly worse. Number 25. Drinking poison for courage. Frontier whiskey wasn't whiskey in any meaningful sense. It was a chemical weapon in a tin cup, tobacco juice for dark color, burnt sugar to fake sweetness, turpentine and sometimes raw gunpowder to put fire in the throat and a shake in the hands. Men who drank it weren't relaxing. They were dismantling themselves one swallow at a time. Their vision blurred, their hands trembled, their capacity for restraint, already thin in a world with no consequences, evaporated entirely. And then they looked around a room full of men who were in exactly the same condition. All of them armed, all of them angry about something, all of them a single wrong word away from painting the floorboards red. The whiskey didn't start the violence. It just made sure the violence never had a reason to stop. Number 24. Saloons, where death was always closed. The sawdust on saloon floors wasn't aesthetic. It was practical, thick enough to soak up blood before it made the floor slippery, because blood was a regular feature of the evening. Bodies were dragged out through side doors so customers wouldn't have to step over them. Bullet holes in the walls were never patched, left as ambient decoration, a casual reminder that the man who'd stood in that exact spot last Tuesday was no longer standing anywhere. Walking through those swinging doors every night meant quietly accepting the possibility you wouldn't walk back out. Number 23. The most lawless town. Fort Griffin, Texas earned its nickname Babylon of the Brazos through body count. People didn't just commit crimes there, they dissolved there. A man could ride on Tuesday, lose everything at a card table by Wednesday night, and by Thursday morning be found face down behind the stockyards with his boots removed and his pockets turned out. Nobody investigated. The body got dragged to the edge of town and covered in enough dirt to stop the smell. No name and family notified. Fort Griffin was the crime problem. The town was just the address it used. Number 22. Scamming entire communities. Con artists arrived with fake gold samples, aged maps, and stories polished smooth from being told 100 times. People handed over everything, savings pulled from floorboards, land deeds, livestock. Then the men vanished and the grief set in. The specific grief of realizing you'd wanted it badly enough to ignore the parts that didn't add up. What made it especially savage, the same towns were hit twice. Different face, same script. Desperation doesn't make people careful. It makes them easier to fool the second time. Number 21. Hired killers for profit. Wyoming cattle barons didn't just hire guns. They created a written death list. Names of homesteaders marked to die, not for crimes, but for existing on land wealthier men wanted. The mercenaries rode out with rifles and no instruction to make it clean. When locals cornered the killers, the U.S. Army arrived, not with handcuffs, but with an escort. They rode the mercenaries safely out of the territory. Nobody was charged and stood trial. The document authorizing the murder of American citizens for profit became a piece of paper history quietly folded away. Number 20. A town controlled by fear. In outlaw-ruled towns, fear wasn't abstract, it was specific and physical. People knew exactly what happened to informants because they'd watched it happen. A body left on the main street, Note pinned to the coat. A family's house burned to the frame while the family was still inside. A man dragged from his horse in daylight, beaten until he couldn't stand, left in the road as a message to everyone watching from behind a curtain. Everybody watched. Nobody moved. The criminals didn't need to threaten everyone personally. One public act of brutality was enough to silence an entire town indefinitely. Number 19. The perfect diamond scam. Two men scattered diamonds purchased in Europe across a patch of Colorado dirt, then invited San Francisco's wealthiest investors to send their own expert. The expert got down on his knees and pulled genuine gemstones out of the ground with his own hands. He came back and staked his professional reputation on it. Millions poured in. When a government geologist later noticed the gems were spaced with impossible regularity, planted, not geologically, the con men were 3 states away. The most dangerous weapon the Old West ever produced was never a gun. It was a story told to a man who desperately wanted to believe it. Number 18. Bodies lost to the journey. A bounty hunter drags a dead man 300 miles across open desert, body lashed to a rope behind the horse, bouncing over rocks and scraping through sand under a 110-degree sun. The corpse bloats, the skin darkens and splits, the face swells until the features blur, and what was once a specific human being becomes something barely recognizable as one. After 5 days, the hunter drops what remains in front of the sheriff. They stare at it, nothing left to identify, no payment, no justice, just a rotting shape on the ground and a man who wasted a week of his life for nothing. Number 17. Photographing the dead. When photography reached the frontier, hunters stopped dragging bodies and started propping them. Corpses hauled into crude studios, wedged upright against walls with boards behind the knees and shoulders. Eyes that had fallen shut were pried open with wire while the photograph was taken. Dead men arranged into casual poses, a hand resting on a chair, a hat tilted at an angle, and the portraits presented to sheriffs as official proof of death, exchanged for cash. Some of those photographs survived. They sit in historical archives today, men with glass eyes and slack jaws staring out of century-old images, the living and the dead deliberately confused for money. Comment right now. Which of these did you not see coming? We're past the halfway point and it's only getting darker. Number 16. A corpse mistaken for a dummy. Elmer McCurdy's embalmed body hung in a California amusement park haunted house for over 60 years. Children walked past it on Halloween nights. Employees repainted it, assuming they were touching up a mannequin. In 1976, a film crew moved it, and an arm detached at the elbow with a dry crack, revealing brown, desiccated bone inside. The crew stood in silence, holding a human arm, slowly understanding what they'd been casually repositioning for years. A real human corpse had been used as a prop for 6 decades, handled by dozens of people, and not one person had ever looked closely enough to notice. Number 15. Death as entertainment. When no one claimed McCurdy's body in 1911, the undertaker pumped the corpse full of arsenic, stood it upright with a rifle in its stiffened arms, and charged 5 cents a look. People filed in off the street to stare at a dead man with skin already pulling tight across the cheekbones, eyes filmed over and sunken. Then he was sold to a carnival, then sold again. His body was a commodity for 60 years, invoiced, transported, stored, and eventually forgotten. Nobody along that entire chain of transactions paused to consider that what they were buying and selling used to be a person. Number 14. Justice without trials. Vigilante executions numbered in the thousands between 1850 and 1900, and most were not clean. A mob drags a man from his cell while he's still screaming, hauls him through the street on his knees with the skin tearing off his palms, and strings him up from whatever is available with whatever rope is at hand. Men didn't always die fast. Some strangled slowly for several minutes while the crowd watched. Some were shot after to speed it up. Some were beaten so badly before the rope they were barely conscious when it finally went around their neck. And all of it, every second, done to men who may have been completely innocent. Number 13. The man who couldn't be killed. Jim Miller walked away from shotgun blasts and revolver rounds to the chest because beneath his black coat he wore a hidden steel plate strapped against his sternum. Rounds flattened against it while he stood absorbing the impact, letting the other man exhaust himself, then drawing and finishing it. Men genuinely believed he was something beyond human. A mob in Ada, Oklahoma eventually dragged him from jail and strung him up in a stable. Before the rope went taut, he reportedly took the noose from the men holding it, looped it around his own neck and said, "Let her rip." If death was coming, he would be the one who put it on. Number 12. The killer who prayed every Sunday. The same Jim Miller sat in a church pew every Sunday with his hands folded in his lap, dressed in the same black coat hiding the same steel plate that had stopped the same bullets he'd collected killing people for money. He bowed his head for prayer. He passed the collection plate, genuinely well regarded, quiet, devout, disciplined. His neighbors had no idea the discipline was the skill set of a professional assassin who tracked targets for days before taking the shot and accepted payment in cash. He hadn't resolved the contradiction between faith and murder. He had simply decided it wasn't a contradiction. Number 11. Studying the criminal mind. After George Parrott was executed and cut down, doctors sawed the top of his skull off with a bone saw while the body was still warm. They lifted out the brain and passed it between them, weighing it, pressing fingers into its folds, searching for visible evidence that evil had a physical address. They found nothing unusual. A brain like any other brain, sitting in a bowl while educated men poked at it and wrote down numbers. What the exercise actually demonstrated wasn't science. It was proof that a dead man, stripped of legal standing, had become property, something to open and examine without ever once considering that it had, until very recently, been a person. Number 10. Carrying heads for proof. Hunters removed heads with a hunting knife worked across the neck for several minutes, or a hatchet if they were moving fast. The head went into a burlap sack packed with rough salt, then onto the horse and into the desert heat for however many days it took to reach a town with a sheriff who could identify the face. Inside that sack, over 3 days in a 100-degree summer, the fat liquefied, the skin loosened, the features shifted. Men rode into town, dropped the sack on a counter, and watched the sheriff reach inside and pull out something that used to be a face and was now barely a shape, and try to match it to a wanted poster from memory. Number 9. The forgotten baby victim. When investigators excavated the Bender property, they found adult bodies, and then something smaller, a baby, 18 months old, no hammer wound, no blade marks on the small bones. Her neck had been broken, snapped by hands, the way you might silence a crying animal, most likely because her crying was a noise that couldn't be explained to passing travelers. No name in any record, no family ever came. She was assigned a number in the official report, noted in a sentence, and the report moved on to the next body. She has been a number ever since. Number 8. The family that ran a murder inn. The bloody Benders seated guests at a table, always with their backs to a canvas curtain, the base of their skull at the precise height Kate Bender had calculated. Someone crouched on the other side and waited. When the moment arrived, a hammer through the curtain, caving in the back of the skull in a single blow. The body dropped through a trapdoor cut directly beneath the chair into a cellar below. Valuables stripped. Remains moved to a prepared spot in the orchard after dark. At least 11 times, possibly more. In 1873, the family vanished before arrest, never found or tried. One of the most methodical murder operations in American history walked away clean. Number 7. A father who killed his own son. Charles Kennedy's roadside stop was a killing ground dressed as hospitality. His young son had watched it happen enough times that one evening he quietly warned a guest that people who stayed didn't tend to be seen again. Kennedy found out. He killed his son, his own child, broke the boy and buried him with the others. The boy had tried to save a stranger's life using the only leverage he had, the truth. His father had treated that act the same way he treated every other threat to his operation, as something that needed to be removed. Don't close this. 6 facts left. What you've already heard does not prepare you for what's coming. If this channel has earned your subscription, hit that button right now. Number 6. A cannibal who bragged. Levi Boone Helm didn't just survive by eating his companions. He described it afterward with the casual detail of a man recounting a hunting trip. He talked about which parts he had taken first, how the cold had helped with preservation, He spoke with the flat affect of a man who saw no reason to perform guilt about a practical decision. The men listening didn't know whether to be more disturbed by what he had done or by the complete absence of any weight it carried in him. At the gallows in 1864, witnesses reported he looked out at the crowd with the same unreadable expression as if death, like everything else, was simply another thing happening to him that he had no particular feelings about. Number 5. Cannibalism in the mountains. Alfred Packer walked out of the Colorado mountains in 1874 looking well-fed, cheeks full, color in his face, while the 5 men he'd gone in with lay scattered across a camp buried under snow. When the snow melted, what emerged was a scene the lawmen who documented it refused to describe in full. 5 skulls cracked open, long bones stripped of meat with the deliberate practiced cuts of someone who knew what they were doing. Packer's story changed every time he opened his mouth. What never changed, he was the only one who made it out, and he made it out looking far better than a man who had merely survived should have looked. Number 4. Murder over a snore. A man in the next hotel room was snoring. John Wesley Hardin lay in the dark listening, getting angrier with every breath. He didn't knock. He didn't leave. He pressed his revolver against the thin wall and fired in the direction of the sound. The bullet punched through cheap wood and hit the sleeping man in the chest. He died without waking, without knowing his last night on earth had ended because he breathed too loudly while unconscious. No argument, no offense given. Murdered for the sound his body made while he slept. Hardin was eventually shot in the back of the head himself. Just like that man, he never heard it coming. Number 3. A human skull turned into a tool. After George Parrott was executed, skinned, and dissected, what remained of his skull found its way to a medical office, where it was set on a desk and used. Not displayed, not stored, used. An ashtray, a doorstop, a pencil holder with pencils standing upright in the cranial cavity where a brain had once been. Visitors were shown it and told the story as if the arrangement were something to be proud of. A human skull on a desk, holding pencils, in a room where people worked and had lunch and complained about the weather. That is what passed for dignity in the Old West. Number 2. Wearing a dead man's skin. Dr. John Osborne oversaw the removal of George Parrott's skin, peeled away from the muscle and fat beneath, tanned like animal hide, stretched and dried until workable. From that skin, a cobbler fashioned a pair of shoes with a distinctly human grain that anyone looking closely would recognize was not leather from any animal they knew. Osborne wore those shoes publicly. Most infamously, he wore them the day he was inaugurated as governor of Wyoming in 1893, stepping onto the platform to accept the highest office in the state with a dead man's skin on his feet, as if wearing a human being on your body was simply what a man of his standing did on important occasions. Parrott's remains were sealed in a time capsule and recovered in 1950, confirming every detail that had always seemed too monstrous to be true. Number 1. The system was the monster. Every execution without trial, every skull on a desk, every body sold to a carnival, every human skin shoe worn to an inauguration, none of it was a malfunction. This is the fact that sits at the top of the countdown, not because it is the most visually horrifying. It's not, but because it is the most deeply, permanently disturbing. The Old West wasn't a civilized place where some bad men did terrible things. It was a structure, legal, social, financial, and moral, that made all of these things not just possible but routine. A governor could wear a dead man's skin and get applauded. A family could murder 11 people, including a baby, and walk away untouched. Hired killers were protected by the United States Army. A man who shot a sleeping stranger for snoring became a legend with a nickname. The system didn't fail these people. The system worked exactly as designed. It just wasn't designed to protect everyone. And that is the banned, disturbing, buried fact about the Old West that history will never quite be comfortable putting in a textbook. Think back to the number you had in mind at the start of this video, that 1 through 10 rating of how dark you thought the Old West really was. Has it changed? What would you give it now? Comment below. If this gave you a side of history you've never heard before, that's exactly what we do. This is historical lore. We go beyond the polished version of history and dig into what really happened, and we tell them the way they actually happened. Like the video. Share it with someone who thinks they know history. See you in the next one.